Welcome to Season 4 of the Knack 4 Business Podcast.
Today's show is brought to you by Phoenix Business Exchange. Here's what makes them different. They've dropped the rules most networking groups live by. No referral quotas, no penalty for missing a week, no friction about joining other groups. What they kept: a structured meeting, a 1-minute infomercial spot, and a room full of people who are genuinely trying to send you business. Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday mornings in Ottawa and online. Link is in the show notes.
Eric Sonego from Côté Associates Professional Corporation. We're located in 8 offices across Canada. We have 3 offices in the US. And last Thursday, I was stumped with the idea of what am I going to tell you? And then I got a call from somebody that made that answer self-evident. What I'm going to tell you today, you might not like to hear, but it's the world as we know it today. Be careful with CRA. CRA employs people who do not know the Tax Act and has computers to help them. When someone who doesn't know the Tax Act checks something against a computer, they envision the worst, or they don't know what the computer is saying. That leads me to discuss who should be doing their taxes and who shouldn't. So if you have a reportable income that is slipped oriented, in other words, you have a T4, you have a T4A, you have a T3, you have a T5. If you have all of that kind of stuff, you can do your own taxes. Why can you do your own taxes? That's because the people who give you those slips have also filed them with CRA, who has computerized the results. So when you send your taxes in, they match them. So as long as you have the same T4 slip that the Canada Food Cupboard gave you, it's no problem. Sometimes there's a problem that what the employer sends is not the same thing that they give the employee, but that is solvable. But the people who should not do their own taxes are the people who make money without telling the government during the year. That's people who run businesses, people who have commission income, people who sell homes, people who do all that kind of stuff, and who are not incorporated. If you're incorporated, you are forced to talk to the government more often and more officially. But if you're not incorporated, you just follow in like a happy moron the whole year, and then at the end of the year, you tabulate all your income and so on, and you send it to the government. They say to the government, "See, I sold, I don't know, 15 houses. I made $100,000, and by the way, I made no money." Or what prompted this discussion today: I have rental income. I am a civil servant. I have rental income, and I made no money. In fact, I lost money, so you have to refund me the taxes I paid. That is a plan to get audited, and the audit will come with a 9-page letter. And the first thing they assume is that you're living in the house that you're renting, and that you made a mistake in the address, and they should be the same address as your address. So that's having to send all kinds of official information that says that that house is located somewhere else. That's 1 page of information that they need to know. Why do they need to know that? Because they're stupid. I don't have any word to say it. It's because they can see the postal code in page 1 and the postal code in the rental income are not the same. So rather than asking the client, why is there a difference, they assume that the client made a mistake in the postal code of the rental income and the street name. So am I being nasty with them? No, well, it's not that I don't think they're smart. They rely too much on a computer who gives these kinds of warnings. Okay, let's take Tony. Let's say Tony has rental income. He rents a house in Kempsville. So he sends his taxes in, and the computer, rather than saying, check it, the computer will say the taxpayer has rental income in another location than he lives at, and we don't have any proof of that. So that then a human being takes that answer and translate it into the 1-page letter saying to you, where are you renting this house? Give me the deed. Give me this. Give me that. Some things that you might not have as a house owner. That maybe at your lawyers, maybe at your mortgage broker. All of that kind of stuff you need to get to them just to prove that you have a house at another location than you're living at. Then the other problem that we came across, the one that came in Friday after I was stumped to say what I was going to tell you, is people who are smart and do their own taxes, and they tax programs that we have as accountants and the tax programs that you have as individual, I know because, some of my staff use those tax programs to do their own taxes, make a lot of mistakes. And because of that, you should never have your taxes done with a computer program if they're complicated. You should go to an accountant or someone qualified to do your taxes because those programs make mistakes. And Intuit is facing a class action suit right now because of the mistakes they made in 2024 and 2025 on reportable stuff. So if you use a tax program that you buy at Staples, have your taxes reviewed by someone qualified. And I'm saying people who have other income, not people who have T4 income, or a retirement income and things that they already have on you there. So the other thing that happens with CRA is that they give slack to the banks and not to the taxpayer. Up until 2025, that ended. For years, the banks were sending your T3s and T5s after February 28th. So when we sent your taxes to the government, they sat there until the bank sent their taxes, or they would tell you that they don't have, you have to prove that you made that interest or that you had that capital gains loss or that kind of attitude. So in 2025, at the beginning of 2025, the government said to the financial sector of Canada, if you send these slips late, it's going to cost you $100,000 a day. And lo and behold, everybody sent them before February 20th. And that's why we don't have any late stragglers in 2025. That's why, that's why the slips are on time, with the exception of financial institutions in the US who, think of us as an afterthought and send them at whatever time they want. But I don't have that many clients that depend on that, and they report that as Canadian income anyway. So we send something to verify that. Now, what is the problem with how CRA interprets the business income or rental income or capital gains? Let's say capital gains. In a perfect world, we don't have to prove how much you paid for your house or for your building. We have to prove how much you made at the end. My arguments in the last year is on the costing and what you paid for. Why? Because we have people in their 20s not believing that a house costs $450,000 in 1997. And now you have to send proof that you spent $450,000 on the house. And a lot of us don't have that proof. We have to go back to the real estate agent if they're still there. We have to go back to the mortgage broker and we have to send purchase agreements. Not, my real estate agent says that the street sold for, at that time for $450,000. I have never argued on costing before. I have never threatened to go to tax court on a costing issue. And that's happening today. It's easy to quantify and prove sale because that happened last week, but it's very difficult to prove purchase if it happened in 1986 or if you were willed the property in 1986 and you moved into the house and you sell it now. That creates a lot of issues with them because they are not smart enough to go and look at statistics from the area. The another thing that happens with them is that they measure what you make and what you spend in charity. Now, most of us have no issue with that. But if you have a client like I have who has a T4 for $175,000 and donate $1 million to a charity, they give them a receipt for $1 million. They are going to say, where did you get the money to give $1 million? Because you're only making $175,000 a year. So that person has rich parents that live in a house that he bought for them, and it has a wife that doesn't work and makes lots of donations. And what the government does, he's not a problem with computers or 20 somethings that don't know how to read a statement. This is a net worth issue. So if you do not look like your expenses, If you, live in a 3-bedroom house and, and that you bought for $150,000 50 years ago, and you're donating those millions of dollars to charity, they are going to audit the charity and they're going to audit you because they don't believe that either one of you is telling the truth. And that prompts a very special letter from them. In 35 years, in 30 years of practice, it's only happened once to me. And they send it to everybody that works for you. So if you are running the company, to all of your employees get the same letter. And they send it to the embassies outside of Canada if the charity was outside of Canada. Now, what should that guy have done? Well, he should have gone to an accountant first. We were told them, be careful with $1 million because that's too much money for what you say you're making. And sometimes we would have not made the taxes. We would have said to him, don't send a tax return like this. Split that donation over 5 years. Go under the radar. So it sometimes it looks like it's a self-evident thing, but it's not self-evident. Sometimes the other thing that people do is investments. If you have $100 in 50,000 places, you are going to have a very difficult tax return. If you have $1 million in one place, you're going to have a very easy tax return. But most people that I've done this year have $500, $600 in a lot of places. So they get 25 5008. So if you get 25 5008 with, bought for $200, sold for $300, kind of 5008, which do not advance your financial state. You're still, poor, for lack of a better term, then you have a horrendous tax return to do. And you should never do it yourself because they already have those 5008 there and they're going to match. And to do, that many 5008, you're going to get into trouble. We have a partner in my firm that cheats with the government in reporting the 5008. One of the staff's members adds all of them up by a computer tape. He puts in the tax return 50,508 purchase price this much, cost as much, the total, and he sends it to the government. And so far they haven't said anything. But I don't have the guts to do that because I live in Ottawa, and in Ottawa is where head office is, and head office has more time than the people in Toronto do, and has co-op students working there who know nothing. Right? I've had to explain rules of the tax act to co-op students who are from university who are going to be accountants 6 years from now. So if you have a problem with them and it's a big problem, stay away from the summer. Stay away from the summer. Give them a date in September. Do whatever you want to do. Stay away from the summer. Tell them that you're away. Tell them that you have a sick aunt in Hungary that you have to go look at. Tell them whatever you want, but tell them that stay away from them because they're going to stick these students on you because they're cheap and they're going to run you nuts. And lastly, if you are very sick, tell the government through other means than your tax return, which means send them a disability tax credit form signed by your doctor because the government does not believe that you need all of those drugs to stay alive. So if you're really sick, and it's affecting your mobility or your thoughts or whatever, go to your doctor and get a disability tax credit, and then tell your doctor that you've been like that for the last 5 years, and you'll backdate it to 5 years ago, and you'll get several $1,000 from the government. But if you're not really sick, do not fake the medical expense. Now, there are dental expenses are believable because dentists are not covered by the Health Act up until recently. So dental expenses like bridges, like false teeth, all that kind of stuff, they're easy to claim because the dentist is claiming it as income and you can claim it as an expense. But anything else, be careful. Supplements are not a medical expense and they're good for you. They do wonders, but they do not do anything to CRA. They do not captivate their intelligence. If you have all of these things that I buy from people who sell better water for soccer players or vitamins and things like that, unless they are prescribed by your doctor, do not put them in your tax return. And the reason you don't put them on your tax return is because if they catch you there, they will put a red flag on you for the next 7 years. And for the next 7 years, you'll get letters saying, send us proof of this, send us proof of that. All of those things that are self-evident, they will ask you for because they don't trust you anymore. So buy those condiments, buy those additives, buy everything you want to buy to make you feel better, but do not tempt yourself with declaring it as an expense, as a medical expense, unless you've talked to your doctor and he has sent you a prescription. And lastly, what do we do when people like that come to us? Well, the one that prompted this discussion, I forgot the name of the program but it's the one Intuit Right. She did their taxes with that. The first thing I did is take the letter, call the CRA and say, I'm on holidays until September 17th. I cannot deal with this. That's the first thing I did. And the client said, well, it's going to take that long time. I said, no, but I'm not talking to these guys in the summertime. The second thing I did is I gave the letter back to the client. It's an 8-page letter. And I said, in your own words, answer as many of these questions as you can by yourself and bring it back to me, because I don't want to fight a cause that it doesn't need to be fought. And I want to fight with the client's words and not with my words, because my words are going to be more dartful than the client. And I'm going to lose my patience faster than the client did, because the client is afraid. So the most of that letter will be done. I will do the rest, and I will start the first paragraph of that letter saying you should employ people who know Canadian geography and know the difference between the Niagara region and the Ottawa area. That's how I'm going to start. That's already in the draft. Now, am I going to get enemies for that? No, because their bosses are going to say, we should be careful with the people we get as co-op students, and we should not be assuming that they know Canadian geography. But the next step that letter will prompt is, after she sends the thing, if they ask one question on it, I threaten to go to tax court. And I say, when I go to tax court, I say to CRA, we cannot discuss this between you and I. We cannot see face to face what is wrong here. Let a judge discuss it. Then 20-somethings lose the file and it goes to an older person, and the older person then calls me and says, what is the problem? And then I discuss the problem with them, and then they might revisit and they might assign it to somebody who's an expert in the area. But what the taxpayer is getting today is the lowest common denominator, and are people who don't know, A, they might not even be speaking English or French. 2, they might not know the Tax Act. 3, they might not know the Tax Act of their own country where they come from. So that's who we're getting today. And I feel sorry for some of my clients, because that's the people that they have to deal with before they come here. And I have lots of clients who are corporate clients who do their taxes, and now we have the rule say you can do your own taxes, but you have to give them to us by the end of May, because we want to make sure that you look like your corporation. We don't want to make sure that that the picture that you send the government of your face, of Jacqueline's face, looks like Jacqueline's corporation. That Jacqueline is not poor in a very rich company, or is very rich in a very poor company. That's what we do, and that's why we charge what we charge.
Everything you heard today is for educational purposes only. It's not professional advice. Before you act on anything, talk to a certified expert in your area. Your accountant, your lawyer, someone who knows your situation. We share perspectives. You make the decisions. Want more? Head over to blog.knack4business.com, packed with practical episodes on AI, marketing, leadership, and growth. No fluff, just the good stuff. Subscribe while you're there. Until next time, keep building.